Hey, so if you've ever tried to read the Bible all the way through, you've probably hit a wall. And for a lot of people, that wall is right in the middle of the book of Joshua. But today, we're going to find out why those chapters, the ones everyone wants to skip, are actually the absolute heart of the entire book.
I mean, the book starts off with a bang, right? You've got the incredible fall of Jericho, all these daring military campaigns, and huge conquests. It's just action and drama, and it's exactly what we think of when we picture the book of Joshua.
And then, bam, the whole narrative just slams on the brakes. Suddenly, the epic battles are gone, and you're wading through chapter after chapter of what feels like endless lists. Town names, weird boundary markers, genealogies. It's just so dense.
And it's so easy to just ask yourself, why is this even here? Why do I have to slog through all of this? It's a question pretty much all of us have asked. And you know what? Today, we are going to find a really compelling answer.
Okay, so first off, if you found these chapters to be a total slog, you are in very good company. Even biblical scholars have wondered, why didn't the author just wrap it up with a nice, simple, and they all got their land and lived happily ever after? But the sheer amount of detail here is a massive clue that something incredibly important is going on.
So how do we crack this code? Well, the key is an analogy, one that connects this ancient text directly to our world today. We have to stop thinking of these lists as a story and start thinking of them as a legal document. To be specific, a 3,000-year-old property deed.
Just think about it for a second. For most of us, what's the biggest, most significant purchase we will ever make in our lives? Buying a house, right? And that whole transaction comes with a mountain of paperwork filled with some very specific and, let's be honest, very confusing language. So this, for example, is actual language from a real property deed. To most of us, that's completely unreadable. It's practically gibberish. But to a surveyor or a lawyer or a title company, that language is everything. It is precise, legal proof of ownership. And this is the aha moment. This is exactly the point. The lists in the book of Joshua are Israel's national property deed. They are the official, archived, legal record that says this piece of land belongs to this tribe. It's the raw data proving their claim to the territory God had promised them.
Now, once you start seeing these chapters as a deed, their structure begins to make perfect sense. These aren't just random lists of names someone threw in there. They are a highly organized archive. And when you look closely, you can see some really clear patterns in the data.
The text has all these different kinds of entries, just like a modern legal file would. You've got boundary lists that trace the literal borders of each tribe's land. You've got city lists cataloging the towns inside those borders. It even includes these little notes about territories that still need to be conquered, and these fascinating little side stories about specific people, like Caleb getting their personal land grants.
And these patterns, they reveal some really important details. For instance, the tribe of Judah gets both boundary and city lists, which shows just how significant their inheritance was. But then look at Simeon. It gets a city list but no borders. Why? Because its inheritance is located inside Judah's territory. And the tribe of Levi, the priests, they get cities but no land at all. These aren't mistakes. They are incredibly precise details showing exactly how God's promise was fulfilled for each and every tribe.
But it goes even deeper than just a legal contract. For the original audience, these lists weren't just about proof. They were absolutely packed with profound emotional and spiritual meaning. I mean, just try to put yourself in their shoes. Imagine you're a soldier who has fought and bled and maybe lost friends taking this very land. To you, these lists of names aren't boring at all. No way. Each name, every single hill, every valley, every town is a memorial. It's a record of a victory that was hard-won and dearly paid for. That incredible detail is there for a reason. After centuries, literal centuries, of waiting for this promise to be fulfilled, you don't just rush past the ending. You savor it. You celebrate every single part of it. The lists are a national celebration in written form. And this brings us right to our final and most important point. Far from being some boring appendix you can skip, these lists, this whole section about land distribution, it's the very heart of the book of Joshua.
When you think about it, the battle accounts in the first half of the book are really just the setup. These lists, this is the story's climax. They are the legal archive, the mathematical proof that God kept his promise, the memorial to the fallen, and the foundation that gave the people of Israel a deep, powerful sense of rootedness in their land.
You know, this idea of being rooted in a place, in a history, that's one of the most fundamental parts of being human. And it makes us ask ourselves, right? What are the records, the histories, the hard-won victories that prove and define who we are? What are the deeds that anchor your story?